Hello and good morning. I welcome you to this video on big data analytics. In today's video, we'll be discussing about setting up of trash in Hadoop. So to set up trash in Hadoop, you just need to set these two properties in your core site.xml file. These two properties are fs.trash.interval and fs.trash.checkpoint.interval. Here is a sample configuration, like you need to put this property and this value. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of this value? fs.trash.interval, the value is 3, which means that files would stay in the trash for 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes, all the files which have been in the trash for 3 minutes would be deleted. And there is another property, fs.trash.checkpoint.interval, which means that after every 1 minute, all the files in the trash would be checked and the files older than 3 minutes would be deleted. So this property fs.trash.checkpoint.interval should be equal to or less than fs.trash.interval. Okay. And one more thing, you see, when trash is enabled, then each user has his or her own trash directory called .trash in the home directory. Now the home directory of the user is /user/hduser, where hduser is the username. Now when you set up your cluster, this user folder is not activated. Okay, so it is not visible initially when you set up your cluster. It is only visible, and within that the trash folder is only visible once you delete a file for the first time from your cluster. Once you delete a file from your cluster for the very first time, the user folder and the trash folder are visible, right? So I'll just tell you, I'll show you how to set up these properties in the coresite.xml file and how the trash is set up. For that, let me take you to my cluster and let me begin the distributed file system services. So I've started the distributed file system services, or the daemons, namely the name node, the data node, and the secondary name node. Once these daemons are working, then your cluster is set up and is ready to be used. Okay. And within this, after this has been set up, I'll open up the file coresite.xml. Okay, let me just see that these services have started. Once done, you can check whether these services or daemons have started. So you can see that the name node, the secondary name node, and the data node, they are up and running. Let me now just open this file, coresite.xml. It is located in your installation folder. I'll just open the installation folder, and below that there is an etc folder and a Hadoop folder, and you have this file coresite.xml there. So once you open it, you can see I've already put these two properties here. The first property, fs.trash.interval, I've set its value as 3. It can be set any value. So 3 here is the number of minutes for which the file would stay in the trash, and after that it would be removed from the trash. And this checkpoint.interval property I've set to 1. That is, after every 1 minute, the contents of the trash would be checked and files older than 3 minutes would be deleted. Okay, so let me just close this file here, and let me show you the contents of my cluster, right? So I'll use a command. We are yet to understand these commands, but for example, I'm just running this command here. So I'm listing all the files in my cluster. Okay, I'm using a Hadoop command to list all the files in my cluster. And you can see that the Hadoop commands are similar to your Ubuntu commands, only that they begin with the hyphen. Okay, so I'm listing all the files in the root of my distributed file system. So if I look at it here, I'll see all the folders are there, but there is no user folder. So as I discussed here in this PDF, that the user hduser folder, and below that there is a trash folder. They are not visible initially. Okay, they are not visible initially when you set up your cluster. They are visible only once you delete a file from the cluster. Okay. So what we do here is, let me just go back to my cluster here. Okay. And let me try to remove a file from here. Okay. So I'll just remove a file. I'll remove a file. Say I'll remove this file. Uh, Let me remove this file P9, right? No, it's a directory. Yeah, mary.txt. Let me remove this file. Okay. So I'll remove this file mary.txt. Okay. Okay, there is some problem. Okay. See, when you start up your cluster, when you start your distributed file system services, usually the name node is in safe mode. So I need to bring it out of safe mode. For that, I'll be using a dfs admin command. We'll be learning all these commands in our subsequent lectures. So I'm bringing the safe mode into an off position. It is on. When safe mode is on, then you cannot insert or delete files from your cluster. Only you can just read the files. So I'm asking the safe mode to be off now. Okay, so you can see on screen now that safe mode is off. So if now I remove this file mary.txt, right, it would be removed. Okay, and see, we have removed it at 11:24, right? So if I see now, if I see the contents of my root folder, you can see there is a user folder activated now. You can see on screen, there is a user folder activated now. Okay. And if I see the contents of the trash, I can see like this. Look carefully here, all of you. So if I do this, okay, then I'll see that the file that I just deleted is here. It's below the current folder. So if I just use current here, I'll see that file here. It's lying here. Okay. And see, now it says that there is no such directory because 1 minute has elapsed, right? So after 1 minute, there is this current folder changes to a date time folder, as you can see here. Becomes a date time folder here. Okay. So it is today's date. It is 9/1/2025, and the timestamp is 11:25. So after the minute in which I delete the file, in the next minute, the current folder changes to a date time folder. So it shows 11:25 here now. So after 3 minutes at 11:28, this file would be automatically removed from the trash. Okay. Which file? The file that you just deleted, mary.txt. I'll show you that the file here. Okay, I'll show you the file here. In the trash folder, there's this folder. You can see the mary.txt file here. It is lying here in the trash. You can see it, right? Mary.txt file is here. Okay, and it would be removed at 11:28, 3 minutes after, because you've set the fs.trash.interval property as 3. So at 11:28, this file would be removed from here. If you want to restore this file, you need to move this file from here to some place where you want. Okay, so this is regarding your setting of your trash. Then another thing that you need to know is the WebUI settings for your cluster. You need to configure these two properties, hadoop.http.staticUser.user property and dfs.permissions.enabled property in hdfs site.xml file. Okay. And the purpose is that you can work with your HTTP, web UI interface properly, and you can work with file permissions properly, right? So I'll show you, like I've not set up these properties currently. So I'll open up, I'll open up the file coursesite.xml, right? I'm opening up this file, okay? And there is no such property there in the coursesite file. I've not set this hadoop.http.static user property. So how does it affect our cluster? Let's have a look. Okay, I'll just close this file here. There is no such property I've set up here. I need to set up, but there is no such property right now. Okay. So what I do here is I go to the web UI of Hadoop. Okay. So to use the web UI, I need to, okay, I'll just write here. I'll use this localhost 9870. I'll discuss this with you. And within that, I'll use the browse the file system. So you can, this is the web UI of your cluster. Okay, you can see all the files which we saw here in the listing. If you see here, all the files which we saw here, let's have a look here. If I use this command, then I list the files here on the in the root of my cluster. Okay, but if I go to web UI, the same files are listed here in front of you, right? So let me just try to remove some file from here as an example to show the importance of those properties. If I try to remove this file ajay.txt, so if I delete it, okay, then you'll say that the permission is, you see here that permission is denied. This is simply because we have not set up these two properties in our cluster. Okay, so this property in the core site.xml file and this property dfs.permissions enabled property in the hdfs site file, right? So I'll do it in the core site and the hdfs site files, and then I'll see whether I can work properly with my web UI or not, right? So let me go here and let me just open up the file here, the core site.xml. Okay, within that, let me just create a, just copy this from here so that I can paste it and set up the property. So I'll do it here and I'll paste it here, right? And I'll change it. I need to make it hadoop.http dot static user, and here the value should be the username, and the username in our case is hduser. So you need to set up this one property in the core site.xml file, then I'll save it. Okay, then I'll open the hdfs site file. hdfs site file I open, and within that I need to set up the other property which I just discussed. I'll just open that to show you. That is the dfs.permissions.enabled property. I need to set it to true. Okay, so I will do that here. And once again, I'll just copy one property. Okay, and I will paste it here to use it. And so I'll write here dfs.permissions.enabled, and I will set its value as true. That is what I need to do here so that my web UI works properly. Okay, I'll set it here, and yeah, I've got the configuration here, right? So once you've done that, you need to restart the distributed file system services here. So first I will stop these services so that the changes can take place, because our services are already started. So I'll first stop the distributed file system services and I'll then restart them so that whatever changes are there in the core site and HDFS site, they can take place, right? Again, starting the distributed file system services so that I can see whether my web UI now works properly after I have configured these two properties in my core site.xml and hdfsi.xml files, right? So the distributed file system services have started, and I can ensure whether the services have started or not by just using this Java process status command, which will tell me that the services have started. And I also know that the name node would be in safe mode. So I would put it the safe mode as off by using this command, so that I can delete the files from the web UI to show you whether it's working or not, right? So now if I go to my web UI here, and if I try to delete some files, say I'll delete this aa.txt, I'm going to delete it from here, okay? And if I delete it, you can see now the file has been deleted. This is an older message, the file has been deleted. Similarly, if I delete another file, say alice29.txt, if I delete it from here, it would be deleted. Now my web UI has been configured. Okay. So just a recap of today's lecture. I first discussed with you, there's a very important properties, that is setting up of the trash folder in Hadoop. You need to configure these two properties, and the values here indicate that fs.trash.interval3 means that files would be there in the trash for 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes the files would be deleted permanently. Similarly, fs.trash.checkpoint.interval property, which is set to 1 minute, would mean that after every 1 minute the contents of the trash would be checked. And once you delete a file, it will first go to a folder under the trash folder known as the current folder. And after 1 minute, that current folder would convert into a datetime folder. Okay. And also this trash folder is below the user HD user folder, which is not visible once you start up your cluster or create your cluster. And it is visible only once you delete a file for the very first time from your cluster, and after that the user and the trash folders are visible. And secondly, you need to set up these web UI settings for your cluster so that you can work properly with the web UI, and you can work properly with the permissions, right? So I displayed that once you set these properties, okay, in the core site and the HDFS site files, then your web UI works properly. Okay, so that is all for today's video. In my next video with you, I'll be discussing about the Ubuntu commands, right? So till then, keep watching the videos. Thank you very much.